Welcome to today's video. We're going to dive into the story, design, performance, and future potential of what would have been the Mitsubishi SpaceJet 2026. If you've ever wondered what could have been Japan's next regional jet, this is the story. It's part retrospective, part speculative, but fully grounded in the actual technical data and development history. The Mitsubishi SpaceJet began life under the name MRJ, or Mitsubishi Regional Jet. The idea was ambitious, to build a modern, efficient regional aircraft in Japan to serve short to medium routes with high comfort and low operating costs. Over time, the MRJ concept evolved and was rebranded as SpaceJet, with two main variants conceived, the M90 and the M100. But in 2023 Mitsubishi officially terminated the SpaceJet project. In this script, when we talk about a 2026 model, we mean either a hypothetical revival or what the aircraft might have become had the project continued. Let's start with the cabin and passenger experience, because that's where many people first connect to an aircraft. The design goal was to offer one of the widest and tallest cabins in its class. The interior cross-section measured about 2.76 meters in width and 2.02 meters in height according to published data. The length of the cabin was proposed around 21.7 meters. In a single-class layout, the M90 variant could seat up to 88 to 92 passengers. The M100 was slightly smaller to satisfy U.S. scope clause constraints, usually 76 to 84 seats. Overhead bins were designed to accommodate modern carry-on luggage, and the aim was to integrate slim, comfortable seats, mood lighting, and a quiet cabin environment. Mitsubishi stressed that this interior would feel more open than many regional jets in its class. Moving on to engines and propulsion, the SpaceJet family was to be powered by two Pratt & Whitney PW1200G geared turbofan engines. These engines were chosen for their fuel efficiency, lower noise, and advanced design. The thrust rating for these engines was in the ballpark of 78.2 kilonewtons or about 17,600 pounds force each under typical settings. With such power plants, the designers projected a maximum takeoff weight MTOW for the M90 of approximately 42,800 kilograms. Fuel capacity was about 12,100 liters. In terms of performance, the target cruise speed was roughly Mach 0.78, which translates into around 828 km/h or more, depending on altitude and conditions. The service ceiling was expected to be 11,900 meters, around 39,000 feet. For range, the M90 was aimed to fly about 3,770 kilometers under optimal conditions, the M100 somewhat less, around 3,540 kilometers. For runway performance, at MTOW under sea level and standard conditions, takeoff distance for the M90 was estimated at 1,740 meters, and landing distance around 1,480 meters. These numbers place the SpaceJet in a solid competitive spot among regional jets, balancing runway flexibility and performance. Design and aerodynamics were important to the SpaceJet's pitch. Mitsubishi aimed for a clean, low-drag fuselage, optimized wing geometry, winglets or canted tips, and smooth fairings. Part of the structure would rely on aluminum, with some composite use especially in tail parts, to reduce weight and improve efficiency. The objective was to lower drag, reduce fuel burn, and control noise. Additionally, the flight deck was intended to feature modern avionics, with plans for a fly-by-wire control scheme and integrated display systems to aid pilot situational awareness. The cockpit was to be equipped with something like Collins Aerospace Pro Line Fusion displays, offering multiple large screens, data integration, and modern navigation interfaces. Let us talk about the program history, because that contextualizes why a 2026 model never fully materialized. The MRJ project was launched in the mid-2000s. Over the years, the program suffered repeated delays, cost overruns, and certification hurdles. The first flight of what was MRJ-90 occurred in November 2015. But then schedule slipped, the initial delivery targets kept moving. By 2020, Mitsubishi had already paused or scaled back much of the development. Then, in February 2023, Mitsubishi formally cancelled the SpaceJet program entirely. So there is no confirmed production or commercial service today. That said, one of the prototypes is slated to be displayed in a museum in Japan around 2026, which has ignited renewed interest in a 2026 SpaceJet narrative. If Mitsubishi, or a successor organization, were ever to revive the aircraft up to a 2026 standard, we might expect refinements in engine efficiency, perhaps even hybrid or more electric assist technologies to reduce emissions further. Interiors might receive upgrades such as next-generation in-seat entertainment, more advanced connectivity, noise dampening, and even more trade-off between weight and luxury. Certification would of course be a major hurdle. The jet would need to satisfy FAA, EASA, and other international standards, especially given the evolving environmental and safety regulations. What about cost and pricing? In earlier projections, when the program was active, the SpaceJet list price was estimated at about $47.3 million per aircraft. But that was before years of delays, inflation, lost momentum, and scaling challenges. If a 2026 version ever entered the market, real unit cost would likely be higher. Also, airlines typically do not pay full list price. They negotiate based on volume, support contracts, and customization. So, what would be a realistic release date if everything had aligned earlier in the development cycle? Mitsubishi had targeted first deliveries in the late 2010s, then sliding to 2020, then beyond. Under ideal revived conditions, one could imagine a 2026 delivery to early customers, but that would require restarting the entire certification, manufacturing, supply chain, and financial investment. In today's environment, that is a tall order. Realistically, there is no confirmed service entry. The prototype display, however, may land in 2026, giving the public a chance to see the jet in a museum setting. In everyday terms, what does all this mean for airlines and passengers? For airlines, the promise was a modern regional jet with lower operating cost per seat, good range for regional markets, and flexibility to serve city pairs that might not support larger jets. For passengers, the larger, quieter cabin, comfortable legroom, modern amenities, and smooth ride were supposed to set it apart from many traditional regional competitors. If revived, it might attract regional carriers seeking fuel-efficient and modern jets, particularly in Asia or secondary markets. In closing, the Mitsubishi SpaceJet 2026 is more dream than reality right now. But the legacy of the program holds value. The technical work, the lessons learned about certification, supply chain, aerodynamics, and design might well feed into future Japanese or global aircraft initiatives. If aviation ever circles back to revive this concept, those groundwork pieces can accelerate a comeback. Until then, the SpaceJet remains a fascinating what might have been story in aviation history. Thank you for watching this exploration. If you found it interesting, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay updated on aviation projects and future jet innovations.